Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before. So I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, many different styles, and that's one of the reasons why these guys are one of my favourite breweries. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I have had from them before. It's one that I know they do very well, and it's also supposed to be a little bit different compared to the ones that they've done within this style bracket previously. So very curious to see how it turns out. Fingers crossed it's another good beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head up towards Gothenburg once again. Göteborg, as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get that Gothenburg catchphrase in when we're reviewing the Gothenburg beers because it is just channel tradition these days. And for this review, we are going to return to Beerbliotek once again. So this particular beer is called Crossing the Streams in the Dark. It is number 297 in their numbering system. Comes in at 6.5% ABV, and this one is a black IPA. So the main difference between this one and the other ones that we've had previously is that this one is supposed to be a little bit more of a kind of New England black IPA. They were saying they've combined some of the malt base of a New England IPA with a black IPA this time, whereas the other ones that we've had have been a little bit more sort of West Coasty in a sense. And I've explained this in other black IPA reviews that I've done recently. I find that you can either get a more kind of caramelly, biscuity sort of black IPA, which I would consider to be the West Coast one, the old school black IPAs, but you're starting to get new ones appearing now that are a little bit more kind of bready and smooth, like the New Englanders actually. So yeah, going to be very curious to see how this one turns out. This beer was released as part of the Lokal och Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for June of 2021. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. Certainly looking forward to having another black IPA from Beerbliotek. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Beerbliotek before, and I will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Beerbliotek once again. So as I've mentioned to you already, Beerbliotek are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded back in 2013 by a multinational group of friends. This is Adam Norman, who's from Australia, Richard Bull, who's a Kiwi, New Zealand, Anders Hedlund, who's Swedish, and then Darl Ecker, who comes from South Africa. So Adam and Richard ran Bar Doppio in Gothenburg, and Darl and Anders were regular customers at the bar, and they often just used to sit and have really deep conversations about different styles of beer, brewing and things like this. And then one day they decided to get together and buy a kit and start brewing their own beer, and safe to say it went very well for them. But the original brewery that they had is in the old Klippan Sugar building, which is a really nice old building very close to the old Carnegie Brewery in Gothenburg, quite a famous company, and I still need to review the old Carnegie Porter. I say this every time I do a Beerbliotek review, and I've still not done it yet. But the original brew kit that they had is from Brewfab in Scotland, and in the first year they apparently brewed 38 different varieties of beer, and that's what this brewery have stuck with. Of course, they do a lot of recipe development. There are beers that appear every so often because they are quite popular, but they have stuck with developing new recipes and doing that quite a lot over their existence. But all the beers, all the new beers are brewed in small batches, and it kind of keeps them sticking to their home brewing roots. So yeah, it's pretty cool actually. They still say that they have no fixed range, but as I say, there are beers that appear every year. You know, Eternal Dankness, Eternal Darkness, there's new editions of those beers every year, and those are definitely worth trying. There's a few things like a Passion for Ginger and an Instant of Clarity that appear very often as well. So yeah, there are regular beers from these guys for sure. But a little bit later on in 2015, they opened a second brewery in Kungston, which is where they now have their main tap room and they run their main brewing operations. The old brewery is used now for producing sour beers, and they've also got a tap room there as well. And they do have an extensive barrel aging project in the new brewery as well. But we've only reviewed one beer from that on the channel before because they haven't released very many of them through Systembolaget, in fact. So yeah, I do hope that I can find another source of some of these barrel-aged Beerbliotek beers at some stage, because there was some absolute crackers in there from what I saw on the website. But yeah, just a bit of a shame that they don't put a few more of those through Systembolaget, because I would love to try them. But the idea behind the name Beerbliotek is that they want to brew a wide variety of beers so that their customers can always learn something new about a different malt or hop or whatever. And it's basically the concept of a library but with beer, and it's taken from the Latin word, of course, bibliotek. So yeah, as of July 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 290 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd, and that number will, of course, increase over the coming months. But yeah, that's all I have for you on the history section of Beerbliotek. I might go through it in time for the next review and just rearrange it and check for other pieces of information and things like that, because it seems like a little while since we've updated these Beerbliotek notes. So that is something I will do for the Beerbliotek beer we'll review next month. But yeah, that's it for your history section just now. If you want to learn a little bit more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's have a look at this one then and see how we go. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is pretty similar to what we've seen from Beerbliotek in the past. But like we said earlier, this one is a 6.5% black IPA, or a New England black IPA, I guess we could say. It says on the side here, our brewers really enjoy brewing new beers or playing with variations in a style. In this case, they're not going with the flow, but crossing the stream to pay homage to the forgotten black IPA. Cross the stream over to beerbliotek.com. The thing that it tells you on the website about this beer as well is that it uses a London fog yeast. So yeah, that is... that's about it. That's all I can really tell you. It didn't say what hops and things they were using in this beer, but yeah, I do like the Beerbliotek artwork. And one of the little touches that I always say I love with Beerbliotek is that they always put on the back Swedish craft beer. I wish more European breweries would do this, because I think it's quite cool to learn about different places and things. But yeah, 6.5% black IPA. This one, I think I paid like 35 Swedish kroners for this can. So that is roughly €3.50, somewhere in the region of £3 sterling, and then probably just a little bit over $4 American. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious about this. The Crossing the Streams in the Dark, number 297 from Beerbliotek up in Gothenburg. Really looking forward to this. A black IPA with a London fog yeast in it. So yeah, let's go for it. So yeah, it is one of the things, when you have a black IPA, check the ingredients on it, because you will find these days that more and more breweries are doing these with a bit of wheat and a bit of oat in the malt base, rather than just the kind of barley malt that you had in days gone by. And of course the yeasts will be changing all the time as well. But yeah, let's have a little look at this one then and see how we go. So before the head disappears, I'll just let you have a little look at that. You can see the beer is poured with a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of fawn coloured head. That is going to fade away and just be a very thin foamy layer later on though. But you can see there's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But I mean, overall, it does look pretty nice, this one. And in terms of colour, if we shine the light through this, it definitely has a little bit of that kind of Coca-Cola sort of Pepsi coloured thing going on with it actually. So yeah, this is the kind of colour that you would expect of a black IPA. You'd expect this lovely dark kind of Coca-Cola Pepsi colour out of this one, but you do get a nice little bit of a chestnutty mahogany type edge to this one when you put the light through it. But yeah, there is a good level of haze to this beer, and if it's got a London fog yeast in it, then that's not a surprise. Does it say on the ingredients on the side? Yeah, this one contains wheat, and that will also contribute to the kind of hazy part of the beer. Let me just check that that's lined up again, because my OCD goes crazy if it's not. But yeah, certainly looks the part, this one. And yeah, I think there's not much else to say about it. Just remember the colour of your beer is dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use. They determine the magnitude of the colour of the beer usually. 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. Black IPA is going to undergo a wort boil between 70 and 90 minutes normally. But yeah, other than that, adjuncts and barrel aging will help determine the colour. But those factors are not really at play in this particular beer. But yeah, nothing more really to say about the appearance of this one. Nothing particularly surprising about it when you consider the style. But let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one then. It smells pretty good, I will say that. I've had a little whiff of it already. But yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, it's actually very strange, this one, because you can smell that yeasty, bready component from a New England IPA. So it's like a New England IPA, but with like a toasty, bread crusty character into it. The aroma of this one on the malty side of things is really weird, actually. I don't know what to make of that. It's a really strange one to describe because it's just two things that you're not used to going together. But it's interesting to smell the London fog yeast in something that's not a proper New England IPA, if that makes sense. Because it really, it almost smells like it's giving you this kind of waxy, bready type thing to it. I say waxy because it just, if you have this beer for yourself, you'll see what I mean. Like the component that's familiar in this, because of the London fog, is this sort of almost waxy, bready sort of thing sitting underneath. It's really interesting, that actually. It's almost oaty, like a waxy, oaty kind of character that you're getting out from this one. So that's something that I definitely need to bear in mind going forward. But yeah, you can smell that big sort of thick, almost white bready, white oat bready kind of thing underpinning this beer. And that's really, really interesting, actually. So yeah, not 100% sure what to make of that, but let's see if this beer mellows out a little bit more. So yeah, on the on the roasty toasty side of things, it does smell a little bit. It smells like it's got a little bit of a kind of well-fired toasty bread crust in there. So I wonder if they're using a little bit of carafa or something like that. It's one of the types of carafa in this, because carafa's got this really distinctive brown bread and toasty bread crusty note to it, and you certainly get a little bit of that out of this beer. It's almost got a little tiny touch of woodiness in it, but there's certainly a wee bit of brown sugar to this as well. So you can get a little bit of a kind of sweet caramel right in the middle of the nose, and then you can feel a little bit as well of a more kind of toasty McVitie, a little bit of a toasty caramel, but also a wee bit of a more McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing coming out of this beer. And you also get a little touch of the wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose as well. So this is a really interesting concoction of things. It smells a lot like a New England IPA, which obviously with a London fog yeast that would make sense. But yeah, it's like the carafa and the strength of the caramel in this that makes it different, if that at all makes sense. It's a really unusual beer, this one. I think, if I was you, I would advise you try this one just for the sheer quirkiness of it, because it does come across really interestingly to me. But on the hoppy side of things then, I don't think we can really say too much more about the malty side. I think it's best to leave that to the taste. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, you certainly get a nice little bit of earthiness out of this beer, that's for sure. There's a good floral aromaticity in there. I don't think this one is piney. I don't think this is pine resinous, but it's certainly got a nice little bit of a kind of floral aromatic sort of thing going on to it, and it's quite bright. And around the front of the nose, you've got a lovely bright grassy, citrusy type quality coming out of this one. So yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business in that sense as well. So yeah, yeah, nice green component to this one, and that's one of the things I always like about the black IPAs. You can always get some really interesting hoppy characters out of these, because the hops, such as Simcoe, for example, and Mosaic, I do think there might be a bit of those in this. There could be a bit of Simcoe, there could be a bit of Mosaic in this. I do think they always interact really interestingly with darker malt bases. But yeah, it's got a lovely citrusy, grassy type thing to it. So for me, I get a little bit of a kind of lighter tangerine orange sort of thing out of it. The other hop it could be would be a Zaka, not 100% sure, but yeah, I get a little bit of a kind of tangerine orange in there, and a little bit of something tropical as well, like a little bit of a kind of mango or something like that. But there's also hints of kind of red fruits in there, a little bit of a figgy, kind of black curranty well, maybe more blackberry, to be honest. There's a bit of a kind of raisiny and blackberry sharpness to it, but at the same time there's a juicier fig underneath, and then you've got a bit of a mango-y type element, maybe a bit of a kind of darker grapefruit as well, but also a nice kind of juicy tangerine element to this one. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is like Simcoe and Mosaic or something like that. There's something familiar about this. I always like playing guess the hops with these beers, but with black IPAs it is pretty hard. Not a lot of breweries tell you exactly what hops they're putting in these beers, but as you'll know if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I'm an ingredients nerd, so I always like to think about it. But yeah, this is a very, very quirky aroma in this beer, I think. So I think just get this, ponder it over a little bit, and then have a taste of the beer. And I think it's about time that we do that now. So yeah, this one is Crossing the Streams in the Dark, 6.5% black IPA with a London Fog New England IPA yeast from Beerbliotek in Gothenburg here in Sweden. Very curious about this, so let's get stuck in. Slanja, skål, cheers. Yeah. Now that is different. I'm going to say straight away, it works. It does work. It's a nice beer. I'm not sure. Well, I said this in other black IPA reviews as well. I'm not sure if I prefer. I don't think I prefer the kind of New Englandy leaning black IPAs to the more old school caramelly and biscuity ones that were about before. I think I prefer all grain rather than adding in the wheat and the oats to these beers, and the yeast as well. I think I do prefer the more old school black IPAs, but this is pretty solid. I've had some really good black IPAs from Beerbliotek over the years. I think this is maybe my third black IPA I'm reviewing from these guys on the channel, and this is nice, but I would say their more old school ones maybe stand out to me a little bit more. One of the best black IPAs you'll ever find, incidentally. Black salts and body malts from Total. So if you ever come across that, try it. One of the best, probably the best black IPA I've ever come across. Beautiful stuff. But yeah, this beer is absolutely, it is very, very nice. But as I say, I like how it goes together. It's sort of, I think I've got the feeling that this one might grow on me a little bit the more that I drink of it. But it's nice, and you always, this is the thing with Beerbliotek. This is why I like them. They try different stuff, and they, 98% of the time, they'll give you a solid beer. I think most of the beers that they aren't convinced with, they throw them away. But yeah. But yeah, this one I think it does mellow out pretty nicely. So yeah, let's try and break this beer down for you then. So with this one then, you can feel the backbone of this beer in the middle third of your palate. You've got that nice little bit of a kind of dry bread crusty element in there. And I really like how that goes together. It's quite a dry, toasty, well-fired bread crust. On top of that, you get a little bit of a more kind of smooth, grainy, brown bready character. But then you can feel the yeasty characters just sitting on top of that. And it almost feels, you've got this very, it's not overly thick, but it feels like a very dense, almost oaty smoothness that you get out of this beer. I do get a lot of that, and I'm pretty sure that's the London Fog yeast that's doing that in this one. So yeah, toasty, well-fired bread crust in the base, a little bit of a brown bready character on top of that, and this is both on middle third and back third of your palate, incidentally. And I would say that in the front half of that middle third of your palate, you do get one or two little woody undertones there, but sitting on top of that layer is that kind of not overly thick, but very dense, almost oaty type layer there. It's really interesting. It's that side of the beer is really interesting how it goes together. But that layer that I'm talking about, it does dry out a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste, but at the same time you also feel some sweeter elements kind of evolving on top of it as well. So sitting on top of that layer, you've got a nice little bit of a sweetness to this beer, which I think works really nicely as well. So you've got a little circle in the middle third of your palate there, and you can feel a little bit of a concentrated sweet caramel in the dead centre of that. As you move further out from it, as you do move further out from that, you start to get the more kind of toasty, you get a little bit more of the more kind of toasty kind of brown sugary elements there, and you get a little bit of a more kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive character as you move out towards the extremities of that middle third of your palate, and that's quite interesting how it goes together. But it's actually quite straight shooting in the middle third of your tongue. I don't think we really have to say too much more about the middle third than that. But let's go on to the other parts of the beer then. So border region between middle third and back third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a kind of bready, yeasty kind of build up in there. You can feel a little bit of the toasty bread crust coming out more. And as we said, the back layer of the beer it's got a toasty, you get that toasty well-fired bread crust in there. You can feel that the brown bready character is a little bit thicker, and then on top of that you've got all these kind of yeasty elements in there, that more airy, yeasty quality out of the beer. So yeah, when you start from the back of the palate in this one, you can feel the flavour's a little bit taller, but it condenses down as you come further forward. Then as you go into the middle third of your palate, it's a little bit more squashed together, absolutely. So yeah, I do like how that goes together in this one. But yeah, I think that's it covered for the malty, yeasty side of things. Let's focus on the hops then. So back corners of the palate. If you go towards the back corner of the palate there, you can feel a little bit of earthiness there. And as you move further forward on this one, you can feel it does get a little bit herbal, but then as you move further forward, it gives you a little bit more of a kind of spicy floral aromaticity. I think I might even be tempted to say pininess in this one, so I wouldn't be surprised if there is a bit of Chinook in this one, and potentially a wee bit of Columbus as well. I think the bittering side of this beer feels a little bit more old school, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, around the front curve of the palate, you have a little bit of a, you get a little bit of a more kind of grassy, zesty sort of thing coming out of the beer. And again, I can really appreciate that. I like that about this beer. So yeah, around the front third of your palate, as I say, just that nice little bit of grassy zestiness, I think, works very, very well. So yeah, big thumbs up to Beerbliotek on the green component there. I do like how this goes together, but let's focus on the fruity part of the beer, the front third of your palate then. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you can feel a little bit of that kind of bready, yeasty build up there again, and a wee bit of the toasty, well-fired bread crust. Then the base of the front third of your tongue is a more, you can feel the brown bread in there, but you also feel a little bit of that kind of oaty, densey sort of thing that I was talking about from the yeast in this. And of course, on top of that, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So towards the back of that then, towards the back of it, you get a little bit of, you get a little bit more of a kind of red fruity note there. You can feel there is a wee touch of a raisiny note sitting on top of it, and maybe a wee bit of plum in there, but you get a bit of red fruit, the kind of red fruits that are in there. I suspect that might be coming from a little bit of Chinook. There could even be a little bit of Cascade in this one, because you can feel almost that the base of that fruity part of the beer comes across with that little touch of a kind of figgy note that you often find from Cascade. So I wouldn't be surprised if Cascade is one of the hops in this, come to think of it. So I think maybe a bit of Chinook, a bit of Cascade, and potentially a little bit of, like Mosaic or something like that. I'm not 100% convinced about Simcoe in this one, having tasted the beer. But yeah, it's interesting anyway. I think I've got a good feeling about Mosaic, I have to say. I'd be curious to know. I wish that Beerbliotek would tell you what hops they put in these beers, because I'm pretty sure I looked and I don't think I've missed it. But yeah, if someone knows, let me know in the comments section below. But I think, yeah, got a feeling like Chinook, Columbus, maybe a bit of Cascade, and then a bit of Mosaic or something. I've got a feeling that that might be what's in this. Could be completely wrong though, you've got to be open to that possibility. But yeah, figgy backbone to it, a little bit of a kind of grapefruity note at the back of the palate, but as you move further forward, you can feel that front half of the front third of your palate. That's where you get that lighter, juicier kind of tangerine note there, and you can feel just behind the front tip of the tongue, you get a wee bit of an almost slightly lemony note, and that's when you get all the grassy, citrusy esters out of the beer. And I like how that goes together. But yeah, I think that covers the flavour part of the beer, to be honest, and it's really interesting, this beer. This is definitely one to try for the quirkiness, but as always with Beerbliotek, it's a really damn solid beer to put as well. But yeah, on the mouthfeel then, to round off the review, this beer is definitely mid-bodied. It's right in the middle of the spectrum. The carbonation is very, very smooth. Because of the London fog yeast in this beer, it does come across as, one of the smoother, kind of breadier, yeastier type black IPAs that you're going to come across. So the beer does have an element of that smoothness to it. In terms of IBUs, I think this one's got to be about 50-ish IBUs, maybe 60, something like that. It's not going to blow the head off you in terms of bitterness, either from the more roasty malts in there that I suspect are Carafa or the hoppy side of the beer, but I do think maybe about 50 or 60 IBUs in this one. You need a bit of bitterness with these black IPAs, of course, but the malty yeasty side of things is very, very smooth. You do get a bit of sweetness out of it, but even the sweet side of the beer has a wee bit of toastiness, and then you've also got just a wee touch of a kind of juicy, fruity component to this beer as well. So yeah, I really like how this one kind of goes about its business and pieces itself together. So it gets a thumbs up from me in that regard. I like that Beerbliotek are doing something a little bit quirky and stuff. I would love to try a few lagers and things like that from these guys. A Helles, a Dunkel, a Doppelbock, and stuff like that. A Scotch ale is something I would love to have a go at from them as well, because I think those are the kind of beers that I've not really tried. I think a triple and a quadruple as well are have also not really been done. It's more, I've had lots of the kind of different American style beers from these guys, but I'd love to try a few more of the old school German and Belgian things from them, as well as a Scotch ale, of course. But yeah, really, really nice beer, this one. Once again, solid stuff. Not sure I prefer it to the more all grain West Coast type black IPAs, but still a really, really nice one. So thumbs up to Beerbliotek once again. But I think we can leave it at that for this review. So yeah, this one was the Crossing the Streams in the Dark. Had to look at my brewery notes there just to get the name of it again. But yeah, Crossing the Streams in the Dark, 6.5% New England black IPA, if we can call it that, using a London fog yeast from Beerbliotek in Gothenburg here in Sweden. Lovely beer this, and worth trying for the sheer quirkiness of it. But thank you again for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Beerbliotek as well, and do let me know some other interesting black IPAs that I should be reviewing, because I do enjoy this style, I have to say. Thanks again for watching. Check out the social media, check out Beerbliotek's social media as well, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and see you very, very soon.